You think it's just your privacy under attack? Well, try your wallet, too. New details exposing how much phone companies are charging the U.S. government for all of that surveillance. And the government is paying for it with your taxpayer money. And just a single wiretap estimated to cost $50,000. Is this an outrage, or if it keeps us safe, is this a small price to pay? Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Welcome to Forbes on Fox. I'm Elizabeth McDonald, filling in for David Asman. Let's go in focus with Rich Karlgaard, Sabrina Schaefer, John Tamny, Rick Unger, Mike Ozanian, and we welcome Forbes contributor Dan Mitchell today. We've got a great crew. John, what do you think?
Even if these wiretaps were free, they still wouldn't be worth it. Too often in modern times, we've given up liberty under the false assumption that the people in the federal government, whom we know to be fallible, can somehow protect us. This is a bad risk to take. In a free society, there is risk involved, but it's worth it to live in this, and we should defend our liberties rather than so easily giving them up.
Karlgaard, you know, to John Tamny's point, what's weird here is that spying could become a profit center. Do you think spying should be a profit center for U.S. companies?
Look, the military-industrial complex is always going to be inefficient. There's always going to be corruption. But, you know, this is not beanball that we're playing with Islamic terrorism. It's not beanball that we're playing in this new information Cold War with China and Russia and so forth. This is not a war that we can ever afford to finish second in. So, I think it's a murky area. I think John brings up a lot of points. But this is, you know, our liberties are really dependent on our safety, too. Yeah,
Sabrina, Rich Karlgaard is saying is, you know, there's no bigger civil violation than being murdered on your way to work when you're on your commute. Let me just lay it out for you. Local law enforcement has been basically paying for wiretaps, I think since 1994, right? Under the Clinton administration, they set aside $500 million for it. The NSA may charge a nominal fee for emails, but the question is, what's the right way to go? Should taxpayers pay for the money or not? Pay for the spying or not?
Yeah, I'm with John on this. Look, I don't think this is a conversation about taxes or terrorism. I think this is a conversation about our civil liberties and our Constitution. And I think Karlgaard is right. Look, I mean, we are living in a brave new world in which the traditional military-industrial complex in which we had sort of physical plants is no longer what wins wars. Now big data is what wins wars, and so we have to be extra vigilant to make sure that our privacy and our liberties are protected.
You know, Rick Unger, the American viewer out there is going to say, yeah, we understand that. We want to catch the terrorists. We want to stop the bad guys. But at a time when the IRS has more information about us than ever before, at a time when the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is, you know, launching that huge, massive database, collecting information on everyone's credit card, mortgages, car loans, I think the American people out there are saying, yeah, there may be limits to basically paying for spying or all of this surveillance going on. Go ahead.
Yeah, but let's be careful here. It's really not murky at all. The kind of wiretaps we're discussing here are not what you've been reading about the metadata that the NSA is collecting volumes of every day. These are wiretaps that result from a court issuing a specific warrant. These are the wiretaps that are used to listen in on mobsters that have been brought down by these wiretappers. And now we're focused on terrorists, not just generally gathering material. This is when the government thinks they have a reason to look at someone.
Let me quick follow up with Rick Unger. But the FISA court basically is being accused of being a rubber stamp. I think going back to '79, they've basically approved 99% of all the FISA court surveillance requests. So what's the checks and balance and also paying for the information? There may be nominal fees paid out. Go ahead.
Yeah, listen, I happen to agree with you on the checks and balances. I think there should always be an attorney representing the people at FISA court hearings. That's something that should be changed. But again, very important, these are not the metadata things that we're hearing about. This is when there's a reason to go after them. Is that worth the money? You tell me. If you're listening in on terrorists planning something or organized crime, breaking the law, of course it's worth it.
Mike Ozanian, you know, to Rick Unger's point, we're living in an age of nuclear fears of nuclear terrorism, certainly biotoxin terrorism fears. What do you think? Where do you come down?
Well, the problem is right now, EMAC, is that nobody can trust the President of the United States. When you look at the AP wiretap, Benghazi, his deceptions about Obamacare, the IRS scandal, all those deceptions, what you need is somebody who can come out, which would be the president, and say, look, this is the cost. This is exactly what we're doing with wiretapping in terms of the information we're gathering. And yes, it's worth it because it stopped terrorist attacks. CNN poll shows 58% of the people in this country do not trust the president at all when it comes to these wiretaps.
Yeah.
That's far worse than it was with President Bush. You need a leader to take the lead on this, somebody the country can trust, and we don't have that.
You know, to Mike Ozanian's point, and welcome, Dan Mitchell. So good to be with that you're with us today. Dan Mitchell, here's to Mike Ozanian's point. I mean, the Air Force just this past week said to the Booz Allen, you didn't do any violations of the law. You're in the clear. And this guy at the NSA walked out with a thumb drive of information. 40,000, 50,000 people work at the NSA. Anybody can walk out with the information. And that's kind of scary to the American people out there. Do you think, though, that there should be not just more checks and balances, but do you think that spying should be a profit center and maybe make it more transparent so you can stop those problems?
Well, I don't want to sound like a boring economist, but we really need to apply some cost-benefit analysis. Is this just another form of corporate welfare for these telecommunications companies? It sounds like we're spending an awful lot of money for things that I assume just involve clicking a computer keyboard a few times to start monitoring someone. And yes, of course, we need the checks and balances, not only in the narrow cost-benefit sense, but as John Tamny was talking about and Sabrina was talking about, well, what about our liberties? How do we put a value on that? Do we really want government collecting all this information? Because yeah, I don't trust Obama, but I didn't trust Bush either, and I don't trust the run-of-the-mill government bureaucrat. We've seen too many examples of individual citizens being harassed and targeted just because some bureaucrat decides that they don't like them. So yes, we need to somehow figure out how to control the size and scope of government.
Rick Unger, go ahead.
How do you do a cost-benefit analysis on the value of tracking terrorists? My family's priceless. I'm sure you feel the same way about yours.
No, but wait, hang on.
Analysis.
That's insane. Sabrina, go ahead.
Yeah, Dan makes a really important point. At best, this is corporate welfare. But at worst, when business is at the service of the government, now we're moving towards National Socialism. So I think that we have something, the cost-benefit analysis is serious. This is not simply about liberty versus terrorism. We have to consider what this means for the long term of this country.
John Tamny, I want to make this, go ahead. Wait, I just want to make this clear. We're talking about whether taxpayers should pay for this information, whether the spying should be made a profit center. We know that there's, and Dan Mitchell's pointing out, that bureaucrats will leak information, that our information could get out there in the marketplace. How do you protect it, and should it be a profit center? Go ahead, John Tamny.
I don't think you can protect it, but I think going back to that point about whether we can trust Obama, that's ultimately irrelevant. The problem here is we're going down a slippery road. Even if we can trust Obama, there's going to be someone in the future whom we can't, who's going to use this information in the wrong way. And the trick is to stop it now. It's not about Bush or Obama. It's about what bureaucrats and politicians will do in the future.
Mike Ozanian, what do you think?
In order for people to make the type of decisions they need about how much liberty they're willing to give up to get so much safety and what costs, they need to be able to trust the man at the top. And we're always going to have a president, I hope. And to that end, you need to have someone you can trust. And Americans, for good reason, do not trust Obama. And that's the central issue here.
Rich Karlgaard, final point.
The central issue is life is murky out there, and there are a lot of bad guys, and this is a tough issue that we're all going to have to work through. But, you know, as I've said before on this show, the Constitution is not a suicide pact.
Okay, thanks, gang.